you can use that to get into the bank and see if you can play with it. Or you could go onto the gray market and sell it to buyers. And this market has emerged. You can sell it more than once. Right. Well, that might get you shot. But so it turned out the National Security Agency, our NSA, was going out and stockpiling these OAs, these exploits, so that they could use them to attack Iran and whoever else. And this is part of what the Stoke revelations also show, is that instead of doing as you say, we found a vulnerability, we can patch that. They weren't. Because they said, these are backdoors that we know how to get in. Well, no, I was thinking they could patch it for their system. So how could you? I think it's in Microsoft Windows, right? I don't know. That's what the basic was for take the other chip that they put into all the defense department computers that does but I don't know. Again, the scary thing is they were just thinking offensively. They weren't thinking defensively. They weren't thinking about how to protect the USA. They were thinking about how to get Iran. And it's also very interesting that the safety is a big part of many engineering disciplines, right? And I am personally attracted to it for some reason. It's not like it gets a lot of glory in academic circles, it's like, or at least hasn't until recently. I think it might, but the engineers, academic or industrial, that design airbags, seatbelts, and stop signs, and warning signs. They wash your hands. Employees wash your hands. Because their culture is full of them, but they're really not very glorious, right? And so we do things with that where we try to think. There's a cutting edge to every discipline. There's a cutting edge to, say, CRISPR, engineering, where you go out there and you do maybe germline engineering. And I guess this is a new thing. And that's a cutting edge. There should be cutting edge safety as well, and ethics for that matter. And so we publish papers I consider cutting edge safety engineering and bioethics. And I wonder why there isn't more of that. Bridges, buildings. There's a long history of cars. And my background is software engineering. I worked in software process improvement and defect prevention. Right. So this goes beyond bugs. I mean, safety. Safety and security risk in general is human beings. Right. We're the most disaster patients all the time. Do we have similar things for, in this highly, capitalistic and freedom-oriented society? Probably your average engineer would run bills rather than say, hey, sign me up, I want to stand underneath my bridge, right?
Every time that he goes into an area, he's always making enormously important contributions. Everything that he touches is like gold.
He's curing cancer. He's making new discoveries of technology. He's being a great mentor. Not much more any one person could do, I would say.
He is a superstar, and he should be perceived as a superstar. Some people start to coast in science. He ain't coasting. No, he is not.
Well, I got interested in science, I think, at really a very early age because I read about fossils and dinosaurs. I thought that was really interesting. I wanted to be a paleontologist. And then I got chemistry set, and I was really excited because I loved, all the chemicals and the colors and doing all the experiments and putting things together and seeing things happen. But it really whetted my appetite for chemistry. As a grad student, I ran into some technical problems that I would begin to get interested in developing techniques to solve the problems. Because I always figured, that rather than just get to where you want to be, if you can develop something that makes it easier for everyone to do, even though it's a little bit more work, you get something more interesting. So I always took that up as a challenge, try to develop new ways of doing things.
His technologies do more than inform his own scientific inventiveness. They actually provide a resource for the entire scientific community, and that is really a notable accomplishment.
He's a gadget guy, and some people are gadget scientists that sort of never get to biology. He's definitely not that. He'll spend X months being an engineer, and then he'll spend X years being a biologist and using it to discover important things and sort of know what the important questions are to ask.
The beauty of genetics is that you can ask a question about some part of biology that you don't really understand, and if you're clever about it, you can trick the cell into telling you the answer. And when you duplicate a cell, it's like duplicating a small city. And to do that, you use lots of machines. Roads, you have things that destroy trash, you have recycling, and importantly, you have to make sure that you take care of the blueprints. Because the blueprints tell you how to build a city, and the blueprints for a cell are the DNA molecules. I think when we first figured out that the DNA damage response was regulated by single transductions and protein kinases, that was pretty special because we thought that was likely to be the kind of information transfer that would be employed, and here it was.
He 100% to know how, what, where, when, and why for every little part of science. And that's really driven, I think, his creativity, his innovation, and his contribution.
We always want to be able to try to get people who are exceptional, not only in terms of what they have done, but what it is that they would be able to accomplish when they come here. Creative, bold, ambitious, and intellectual. He's a super good guy.
Well, I mean, ambition is interesting word because it implies that you want to expand your career sort of thing. And that's really not what drives me. I'm just interested in questions. It's really a privilege to be in a position where you're in a lab, you can think of things, you can run out and test them, and try to see if you can understand something in a new way. And there's just no way to describe sort of feeling of enlightenment when the right idea just clicks into place and just explains a lot of things that you've been wondering about, puzzling about for years. And that's a pretty good feeling.
Every time that he goes into an area, he's always making enormously important contributions. Everything that he touches is like gold.
He's curing cancer. He's making new discoveries of technology. He's being a great mentor. Not much more any one person could do, I would say.
He's a superstar, and he should be perceived as a superstar. Some people start to coast in science. He ain't coasting. No, he's not.
Well, I got interested in science, I think, really at a very early age because I read about fossils and dinosaurs. I thought that was really interesting. I wanted to be a paleontologist. And then I got a chemistry set, and I was really excited because I loved, all the chemicals and the colors and doing all the experiments and putting things together and seeing things happen. But it really whetted my appetite for chemistry. Gradually, I ran into technical problems that I would begin to get interested in developing techniques to solve the problems because I always figured, that rather than just get to where you want to be, you can develop something that makes it easier for everyone to do. Even though it's a little bit more work, you get something more interesting. So I always took that as a talent, trying to develop new ways of doing things.
His technologies do more than inform his own scientific inventiveness. They actually provide a resource for the entire scientific community, and that is really a notable accomplishment.
He's a gadget guy, and some people with gadget scientists that sort of never get to biology. He's definitely not that. He'll spend X months being an engineer, and then he'll spend X years being a biologist and using it to discover important things and sort of know what the important questions are to ask.
The beauty of genetics is that you can ask a question about some part of biology that you don't really understand, and if you're clever about it, you can trick the cell into telling you the answer. And when you duplicate a cell, it's like duplicating a small city. And to do that, you use lots of machines. Loads, you have things that destroy, trash, they have recycling, and importantly, you have to make sure that you take care of the blueprints. Because the blueprints tell you how to build a city, and the blueprints for a cell are the DNA molecules. I think when we first figured out that the DNA damage response was regulated by signal transductions and protein kinases, that was pretty special because we thought that was likely to be the kind of information transfer that would be employed, and here it was.
He wants to know how, what, where, when, and why for every little part of science. And that's really driven, I think, his creativity, his innovation, and his contribution.
We always want to be able to try to get people who are exceptional, not only in terms of what they have done, but what it is that they would be able to accomplish when they come here. Creative, bold, ambitious, and intellectual. He's a super good guy.
Well, I mean, ambition is an interesting word because it implies that you want to expand your career sort of thing. And that's really not what drives me. I'm just interested in questions. It's really a privilege to be in a position where you're in a lab, you can think of things, you can run out and test them, and try to see if you can understand something in a new way. And there's just no way to describe sort of feeling of enlightenment when the right idea just clicks into place and just explains a lot of things that you've been wondering about, puzzling about for years. And that's a pretty good feeling.
About a new curriculum is that we're changing the way we teach. We're starting students in clinical environments very early, within the first week or two of school.
We shouldn't have a course in which the way in which we teach the students is the same way that I learned when I was in medical school. HMS has had a long and glorious history of educating physicians, scientists, innovators, and leaders. And one of the secrets of our success has been our ability to evolve our curriculum in response to changes in pedagogy and changes in the external world in which our students will graduate. And the big picture of the new curriculum is trying to introduce the basic sciences that students need to know to enter the clinics more quickly as medical schools start with 2 years of preclinical work and then 2 years of clinical work.
So our feeling is that most of the basic science is actually best learned after you've had some clinical experience.
So instead of having a kind of stratified system where you spend 2 years in the classroom and 2 years in the clinic, the idea is to now interweave these elements.
The core clerkship year, which we're moving from year 3 to year 2, is itself one of the centerpieces of our curriculum. Students go to one of the finest hospitals in the country.
After that principal clinical year, we'll bring everyone back together, the students and the faculty, and we'll be able to take advantage of what they learned during that year, really build upon the experiences they had taking care of patients and interacting with clinicians. I think you have a greater context for how to really internalize the information that you're being given, why the basic science actually matters when you apply it to a patient's case.
Another particularly exciting thing about the new curricular design is the opportunity it will give students in the 3rd and 4th year to individualize their experience.
The idea here is to really give students say in what they learn in what degree of depth.
So a student who is interested in neurology or psychiatry might very well want and need to take more advanced courses in the pathophysiology of brain disorders. This curriculum is about the core concepts that you need to function as a doctor, learning how to think, learning how to apply that at the bedside with your patients. That's the fun part of medicine. That's the stuff that will last with you for your entire career.
I couldn't be more excited about the Pathways curriculum that we will be introducing next year.
Throughout the process of creating this new curriculum, I reflected on my own years at Harvard Medical School, and I'm truly excited by the changes that we're presenting, ways to incorporate ways of teaching that accept and allow for and highlight the use of new technology.
It's really allowing us to reconceptualize how we think about teaching and really the process of becoming a physician.
I think two real advantages of this change, particularly for the social and population sciences, but really across the whole curriculum, are the efforts and the work that we're doing to integrate all of the right pieces together.
Harvard Medical School is a unique environment to transition from being a pre-medical student to a highly competent physician. We have incredible support for our students here. We have wonderful faculty looking after them both academically and personally, advising them, trying to nurture all of their unique talents towards the career goals they set for themselves. And we have a lot of fun as we do it as well. So people are still trickling in, but I think we're going to get going with the keynote speaker. So my name is Jason Wright. I'm a postdoc in Sloan Jones Group and in the Medical Population Genetics Program. And I have the great pleasure of introducing George Church today. Our keynote speaker is a professor of genetics at Harvard Medical School and a core faculty member of the Weiss Institute of Biologically Inspired Engineering at Harvard. He currently leads the research group of more than 80 students and senior scientists. In 1984, George developed the first direct genomic sequencing method with Wally Gilbert. He is a pioneer in next-generation sequencing technology and personal genomics and has co-founded numerous companies. It is really a treat to have him here today. We're honored to have George Church present. JT.
Thank you very much. You might be wondering why I would take the world's most exciting topic, which is CRISPR, and combine it with what sounds at first blush like the world's least exciting topic, which is safety. Trust me, I'm not going to be telling you about lab coats and goggles. It will be different, and that's the point, is that sometimes to think out of the box, you need to be thinking of things that other people have dismissed or rejected as uninteresting. So we have safety. Technology is really about risk and benefits. There's almost no technology that doesn't have a risk of accidental or intentional abuse. But we have various ways of mitigating those and maximizing benefits. And I have here automobiles, but it could pick almost any new technology. And the fact is that automobiles kill 1.2 million people per year, despite all of our efforts at reducing risk. You have these isolation or biocontainment for people driving in the wrong place or breaking into your car. And it's important that you have testing of all these ideas so you have the crash dummy. You don't just do it theoretically. And then I've made points about all these analogies in biology. I've made points for over a decade now. So containment. We have one of the points that we made in addition to surveillance for people accidentally or intentionally making the wrong thing is this concept of containment. You can design systems that are genetically and metabolically isolated. And our favorite way of doing this is with changing the genetic codes, which requires changing genome editing on the largest scale probably anybody in this audience or any other one has considered, which is on the whole genome scale. We've done one codon of the 64 genome-wide, and we now are completed the synthesis, but haven't completed the assembly and testing of a full 4 megabase pair synthesis, which changes 7 of the 64 codons. And this not only results in biocontainment, which may sound ordinary, but it also results in multi-virus resistance, because it resists all viruses effectively, which is anything but ordinary. So what are our concerns? And that'll be kind of the theme here, is what are our concerns and what are the answers? And I'll start with this question of equitable access, and then how we go about reading and editing accurately, and why reading the genome is relevant to you. I don't think I want to mention much today that isn't relevant to you, but you won't recognize everything right away. So here's an extreme example. This, to some extent, is the elephant in the room that some of the rooms I sit in, and it's about germline. And here's just the recent Science and Nature papers, which I'm sure everybody is aware of, even if they're not necessarily interested in it. And one of them is obviously much better at alphabetization. But the other difference is one has the emphatic, don't edit the human line. The other one is about going forward. Not going forward flawlessly, but going forward. And I think it's a very different emphasis. And he's here, this kind of summarizes some of the concerns that people have, not all of them, but one of them is that it's useless, that this particular kind of editing is useless. They cannot imagine a situation in which human embryos would offer a therapeutic benefit over existing and developing methods. When everybody says they can't imagine something, I worry that they will later be embarrassed by that lack of imagination. It would be difficult to control exactly how many cells are modified. It seems like this applies equally to somatic gene therapy, and which is actually what many of the authors were employed doing, is somatic genome editing at Sangamo. And then finally, this issue of off-targets, which we talked about in great depth yesterday morning and lunch, and I think is a recurring theme, and we'll get to that in a moment. So my tentative response to these is in terms of two situations where it could have therapeutic benefit. One is about homozygous parents, thalassemia or cystic fibrosis, or a variety of other homozygous parents that mutant and fall in love and line of children. And also, the idea of mosaicism doesn't apply to clonally derived cells, especially clonally derived germ cells. We'll come back to that in a moment. That actually could be safer than the alternative. So before you dismiss something, you should consider the full safety landscape. Now, equitable access is another thing that comes up in many of these, not just for germline, but for somatic gene therapy at all, and it's justified because here is, a quote that hopefully you all know this fact, but it's worth talking about, which is that the only approved gene therapy right now is also the most expensive therapeutic industry. And I think that's not right. We know that the cost of making an adeno-associated virus is not $1.2 billion. They're paying off all the drugs that didn't work. So cost. I've had the unusual experience of being a participant, first-hand observer and participant in one of the fastest changing technologies in history, which is next-generation sequencing. And this is a part of a slight variation on a classic curve that we dropped off of Moore's Law. We meaning biology, genome sequencing was on Moore's Law, and it dropped off to the next-gen sequencing that came around 2005, and it has to keep going. But the point is it took 6 decades, which would be the aggressive Moore's Law curve, but an even more aggressive curve that was 6 years over 6 decades. So that's about cost. I think this will be applicable to gene therapy, but I can't provide you with a proof. Certainly, if I have anything to do with it, it will drop until gene therapies are less than $1,000 as well. But it's not just about cost, it's about quality. And we've had exponential quality improvements in the genome sequencing as well. We actually once debated whether it should be 10 to the minus 2 or 10 to the minus 3. It's now 10 to the minus 7, 10 to the minus 9 for the well-behaved parts of the genome. And also the poorly behaved parts is represented by haplotype is improving as well. So what's the equivalent for CRISPR? This needs no introduction since it was a major topic yesterday, but I want to get at what it is we're worrying about and how close are we. So we talked about yesterday theoretical and empirical searches. It's cheap enough you can actually do an empirical search for guide RNAs as densely as you can find them. Dose optimization is important. You can make dimeric nucleases, 2 of which are illustrated here. I don't need to go over them in truncated guide RNAs. So these are the ways that are in place, and there's one other way that we'll get to in a moment that I've already alluded to, which is clonal analysis. But what are the concerns? Why are we spending so much time on something that's really pretty specific already? Just taking Cas9 out of nature, as Shingar and Keith mentioned yesterday. Cas9 out of nature has really quite low off-target that requires GuideSeq to find in some cases, and even GuideSeq can't find the off-target in some cases, as we'll get to in the next slide. So this is why I think we're worried, and this is not often explicitly stated, but I think in a safety session we should. Between 1996 and 2003, this group that was one of the pioneers in gene therapy was using a Maloney murine leukemia virus vector to cure SCID, and here it was not clonal delivery. This was delivered to 4 times 10 to the 8 cells, but each cell got a slightly different delivery, and a slightly different experience off-target or on-target. There weren't any targets, it was just the delivery. And so of the 10 patients, 2 of them, called T4 and T5, happened to have rare integrations into the LNOS long gene indicated here, and that was enough to stimulate this and cause patients to die. So 2 patients set back that field justifiably by about a decade. So be careful as you rush ahead to scoop or not be scooped, that there are consequences to rushing. So that's what we're concerned about with gene therapy in general. What about Cas9 gene therapy? And I would say taking the data from Keith and Shingar that we talked about yesterday, their best example, as far as I know, is still this, I'm just let's click here, whether it's RNF2 or RFN2, but there's a gene that has undetectable at about 10 to the minus 14. the best guide sheet so far. If we take the worst case scenario where we have to do full body delivery, but a better case scenario where we're not trying to avoid every base pair in the genome. We can have off target in the middle of junk DNA, that's okay. That's, again, something that's not discussable. What we're worried about, specifically with nucleases hitting tumor suppressor genes and with Cas9 activators hitting off genes. I will submit to you that that's the main thing that we're concerned about. It's not all off targets. So anyway, you take the worst case scenario for delivery and what I think is a realistic case scenario for what we're worried about, you end up with a 10 to the minus 19th as a goal, and we're at least at 10 to the minus 14th with Cas9 straight out of nature, almost unaltered. That's because the guide sheet method and other methods don't yet work on the, what's in this slide,